All right, so my name is Tim Axtell. I also worked on this project with my partners Brendan Moat and Blake Parpart, and our project was about comparing subspecies of Accipitridae, mainly hawks and eagles, and their size, their reproduction rates, and their lifespans. Some previous research has been done as to why larger birds tend to live longer. One theory is that a larger bird is able to maintain flight for longer periods of time and is able to move to different habitats quite easily to find prey to survive off of, not having to worry about starvation at all. Another has to do with habitat quality. A larger bird is able to bully its way into almost any ecosystem that it likes as long as it can handle the climate, as it won't have to worry about being attacked by other larger birds or competing for food with other predators. This contributes to some of our hypotheses that are seen in later slides. There's not much research as to how reproduction rate will affect lifespan or vice versa. Most of our hypotheses on that come from background biological knowledge and inferment. The purpose of our research was to examine the differentiations between hawks and eagles in terms of mass, wingspan, reproduction rate, and lifespan, and determine if some of these variables will have any effect on the others. We hypothesized originally that eagles would have a higher mass, wingspan, and lifespan than hawks, while hawks would have a higher reproduction rate than eagles. We hypothesized that there would be a negative correlation for both eagles and hawks between reproduction rate and lifespan, and a positive correlation between mass and wingspan, and a positive correlation between mass and lifespan for both eagles and hawks. Basically, our research revolves around finding out how the size of a bird correlates to its other intangibles. Hawks and eagles are both fairly similar in biological makeup, but eagles are just much larger, and we wanted to study the effects of this. Both hawks and eagles belong to the kingdom Animalia and the Accipitridae family of the phylum Chordata, one of the three common families of birds, Accipitridiforms. There were not many samples given from the data that we used in Quadvark, only about 10 samples for both hawks and eagles, so we decided not to remove any outliers. There weren't many present anyway. If there were, it mostly just had to do with one bird being significantly smaller than the others in its group. All of our data was collected from the Quadvark website, the Query and Reports section, and after collecting it, we put all of our data into an Excel spreadsheet and made all of our graphics from that Excel data.
The first graph I made was a graph comparing mean mass of hawks and eagles. And in comparing the mean mass between the eagles and the hawks shows that the eagles are most of the time going to be much larger than the hawks, with eagles having a mean mass of 4,018.75 grams and hawks having a mean mass of 1,116.7 grams. Next, we compared mean wingspan between the hawks and the eagles, and the mean wingspan showed that the eagles have a much larger wingspan at 1,970.5 millimeters than that of hawks with a wingspan of 1,059.2 millimeters. This overall can affect flying speeds, hunting styles, and the actual size of the birds. Next, we compared mean eggs per season. By doing so, we found that hawks have a higher output than the eagles with an average of 3.49 eggs to the eagles' 1.75 eggs per season. This shows us that hawks have a higher reproduction rate than eagles. We also compared mean lifespan between hawks and eagles, and by doing so, we had found that eagles have a significantly longer lifespan at 21.473 years than hawks at just 8.574 years. This is most likely an effect of the other three graphs. The eggs per season may cause hawks to have a shorter lifespan, as well as being a smaller overall bird can lead to disadvantages in hunting and flying compared to eagles.
The data we collected shows that the reproduction rate and lifespan have a negative relationship for both hawks and eagles, but eagles show a very weak negative correlation, so this may be negligible for them. There might be good reasoning as to why eagles don't seem to be affected by producing more offspring, but hawks are. Eagles have next to no competition for food or any sort of predator that they have to avoid, while hawks often compete with birds of similar size, like owls, for example. This means that they will have to fight to have enough resources to feed their offspring, or they may die trying to protect them, whereas an eagle will almost never have to protect their offspring and won't have as much stress to put on them when they reproduce. This chart is fairly simple. Both bird types show a positive correlation between mass and wingspan. This makes sense because a heavier bird will need larger wings to support its body weight. Both hawks and eagles show a positive correlation between mass and lifespan. This means that larger birds will typically live longer regardless of their species. This may be because a bird which is larger will typically have a better chance of surviving any sort of predator attack. Also, a larger bird would likely have large talons, making it far less likely to let any prey escape while it's hunting, decreasing the chances that it might starve. Hawks and eagles are similar in their makeup, which is partly why we chose these two bird types. We wanted to see how much a bird's size affected their other attributes. They both have specialized talons which are covered in bumps called spicules, which allow them to hold on to prey in their claws. Another uniting characteristic seen in both hawks and eagles is their eyesight. This is extremely useful because most of the time both birds hunt very small animals, like mice, from an aerial view, so they need that sharp eyesight. Otherwise, they won't be able to catch any food while maintaining a safe distance. These birds have a much larger number of nerves connecting their eyes to the imaging processing portion of their brain, up to 5 times the amount of a human. This allows the bird to see in much greater detail, being able to distinguish very small objects from extremely far away.
The data we collected seems to be closely connected to Bergmann's rule. The idea that larger animals tend to live in colder climates while smaller animals tend to live in cooler climates. Although it was not previously mentioned, most eagles live in cooler regions like northern parts of North America and Canada, while hawks are found in more arid climates such as Africa and some southern portions of Eurasia. This directly follows Bergmann's rule. Eagles are much larger than hawks and prefer cooler climates, and hawks are much smaller than eagles and prefer warmer climates. For a time, North American bald eagles were placed on the endangered species list. They were nearly wiped out from hunting and pesticide use. Since then, they have made a massive comeback, but the biological implications of them reaching an endangered status in the first place is quite interesting. Eagles don't mate as often as other birds, as they don't need to. They survive long enough to avoid having to produce many offspring. This was fine for a time, but the endangerment that they went into shows that even though they are self-survivable, an outside force could easily wipe them out due to their relatively low numbers compared to other bird species. Despite being much larger and more predatory than most other birds, they are far more prone to extinction.